Rain taps against the window like impatient fingers, keeping time with my restless thoughts. It's 4:37 a.m., and I've been awake for hours, listening to the symphony of absence beside me. Elise's side of the bed is empty, still made from yesterday, the sheets pulled taut in that precise way she insists upon. Military corners, she calls them. Control in the smallest details. The blue light of my phone illuminates the darkness as I check our joint account, a ritual of worry I've developed these past months. The numbers don't make sense at first. I blink, rub my eyes, and look again. Where there should be $180,000, our life's security, our future, there is only a balance of $212.47. A transaction history shows the rest transferred at 2:14 a.m. to an account I don't recognize. Except I do recognize it. In that sick, instinctual way, you recognize betrayal before your mind can name it. Elise's private account, the one she doesn't really use anymore. I don't throw the phone. I don't scream. I simply place it face down on the nightstand and listen to the rain intensify, as if the sky itself is responding to what my body cannot yet process. Money is just potential energy, Elise once told me during our third date 7 years ago. We were drinking Pinot Noir on a pier, watching fishing boats return at dusk. It's neither good nor evil, just a current that flows toward intention. She'd looked at me then with those amber eyes that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom, and I'd thought, this is what it means to be truly seen. I was a fool. By 6:30 a.m., I've showered and dressed. I've made coffee, the good beans Elise brings back from her business trips to Colombia. I've sliced sourdough bread, arranged fresh berries in a small ceramic bowl, and set the table as if this were any ordinary Tuesday. As if our life together hadn't just silently imploded in the dark. I hear her before I see her, the familiar cadence of her footsteps descending the stairs, the soft rustle of silk against skin. Elise enters the kitchen like she's arriving at a business meeting, hair pulled back in a severe bun, charcoal pencil skirt, cream blouse buttoned to the throat. Her face betrays nothing when she sees me sitting there. If anything, there's a slight upturn at the corners of her mouth, not quite a smile, but the ghost of one. "You're up early," she says, crossing to the coffee maker. Her voice is steady, almost musical. She pours herself a cup, adds precisely 1 teaspoon of sugar, and stirs clockwise exactly 7 times. The ritual I've watched for years. "Couldn't sleep," I reply, my voice somehow calmer than I feel. "The rain." She sits across from me, lifts a raspberry to her lips. It's supposed to clear by noon. The silence stretches between us, elastic and dangerous. I spread butter on my toast, watch it melt into the warm bread. Outside, a car splashes through a puddle. The clock on the wall ticks, normalcy performing its final act. "You're not going to say anything?" she finally asks, her tone almost disappointed, as if my calmness has robbed her of something essential. I look up and meet her gaze. "About the money?" A flash of something, satisfaction perhaps, crosses her face. She sets down her coffee cup without a sound. "I thought you might sleep through it." "Like I've slept through everything else?" "Don't be dramatic, Daniel." She smooths an invisible wrinkle from her skirt. "It's just money. Our money. My career made most of it." The words slip out with practiced precision, a blade she's been sharpening for years. "Your property management hardly contributes." I nod slowly, absorbing the blow without flinching. 7 years together, and this is what it comes down to: a financial assessment of worth. I think of my abandoned novel, the one that sits in fragments on my laptop, the one she called quaint and unrealistic, until I stopped talking about it altogether. "Are you going to beg for it back?" she asks, studying me like I'm a particularly disappointing investment. Threaten me with lawyers? I take a sip of coffee, letting the bitterness coat my tongue. No. Her perfectly shaped eyebrow arches. No? You'll never get it back, she says, the words falling between us like stones in still water. I set down my cup and lean forward slightly. Check your inbox. For a moment, confusion clouds her features. Then something shifts in her expression, a crack in the facade, a ripple across still waters. She reaches for her phone with fingers that aren't quite steady anymore. I watch as she scrolls, as color drains from her face, as the mask she's worn so perfectly begins to slip. Her eyes widen, dart back and forth across the screen. Her throat works silently. You, she begins, but can't seem to find the words to continue. I didn't send it to everyone, I say quietly. Just the board members at your firm, and Reginald Thompson at the ethics committee, and Karen, her boss, the woman who had mentored Elise since graduate school, the woman who had no idea that Elise had been siphoning client funds into personal ventures for years. You can't prove any of this, she whispers, but there's no conviction in her voice. Mira kept records, I reply. The name lands like a physical blow. Mira Lynn, Elise's former business partner, the one she'd systematically pushed out and discredited 3 years ago. She reached out to me last month. Elise stands so abruptly that her chair topples backward, clattering against the tile floor. Without another word, she grabs her keys, her bag, and storms out of the house. The front door slams with such force that the windows rattle. And then, silence. I sit alone at our perfectly set breakfast table, rain still tapping against the windows, and feel nothing but the hollow space where anger should be. You knew? Jonah asks, hours later. He sits across from me in the same chair Elise occupied this morning, but his presence fills the space differently. Warm, solid, uncomplicated. I nod, pushing a stray raspberry around the edge of my plate. The fruit has softened, bled a small red pool onto the white ceramic. For weeks, maybe longer if I'm honest with myself. About the money or about everything else? Both. Neither. I sigh, running a hand through my hair. I knew something was wrong. The way she'd take calls in another room, the late nights at the office, the questions whenever I mentioned our savings. Jonah leans back, studying me with eyes that have known me since we were awkward teenagers throwing rocks into the ocean. But the email, that was one hell of a chess move, Danny. I almost smile at the old nickname. No one calls me Danny anymore. Elise always said it sounded childish. It wasn't about revenge, I say quietly. It was about truth. All these years, I've been swallowing words, pretending not to see. This morning, I just couldn't do it anymore. The rain has finally stopped, leaving behind a hush that feels almost sacred. Light breaks through the clouds, casting long fingers across the kitchen floor. I remember how Elise and I once danced here, in the early days, to Nina Simone on the record player. How she'd laughed when I dipped her hair brushing the tiles. How real it had felt then. She's done this before, you know, Jonah says, his voice gentle but firm. Not the money, well, not exactly, but the manipulation, the control. I look up sharply. What do you mean? He shifts uncomfortably. That summer after graduation, when she suddenly stopped talking to Maria Keller, it wasn't because Maria betrayed her confidence. It was because Maria confronted her about taking credit for group work at the firm. The memory surfaces. Elise coming home furious, declaring Maria dead to her. How quickly the friend group had realigned around Elise's version of events. How Maria had eventually left town altogether. Why didn't you tell me? Jonah's eyes are sad. Would you have believed me? Besides, By then, you were already... He trails off. Already what? Different. Quieter. Like you were always measuring your words. The truth of it hits me with physical force. I think of all the times I'd edited myself around Elise. All the opinions softened, desires muted, dreams folded away like winter clothes in summer. Had I really become so diminished? This wasn't about money, Jonah says, reaching across the table to grasp my shoulder. It was about power. Power. Yes. The word slots into place like a key turning in a lock. All those years of subtle corrections, my taste in wine was developing, my career ambitions modest, my novel a nice hobby. The way she'd interrupt me at dinner parties to clarify what I actually meant, the raised eyebrow when I chose the wrong shirt, the slow, inexorable shrinking of my world to fit within the borders she'd drawn. I loved her, I say, and I'm surprised to find it's still true, even now. I really did. I know. Jonah's voice is kind. That's why she could do this. We sit in companionable silence as afternoon light slides across the floor. Outside, a neighbor's wind chime sings in the post-storm breeze. Life continuing, as it always does after devastation. What happens now? Jonah finally asks. I consider the question, tasting its possibilities. For the first time in years, I feel the curious lightness of uncertainty, not as anxiety, but as potential. I need to call Clara, I say, the decision forming as I speak it. Your sister? You haven't spoken in 3 years. I nod, feeling the weight of lost time. Elise thought she was a bad influence, too emotional, too messy, too real, I think, but don't say. She always asks about you, Jonah says quietly. Every time I see her in town. Something tightens in my chest. Regret, perhaps, or hope. And there's someone else I need to talk to. Who? Mira Lynn. I reach for my phone. Elise cut her out years ago, but she's the one who sent me the documentation. There's more to this story than just our savings. Jonah nods slowly. You're not just going to retreat inward again? Hide away in silence? The question catches me off guard, precisely because it's so accurate. That has been my pattern. Withdraw, process alone, emerge with wounds neatly bandaged but never truly healed. It's what my father taught me, without ever saying a word. Men absorb pain. They don't examine it. No, I say, surprising myself with the conviction in my voice. Not this time. As Jonah leaves, promising to check in tomorrow, I stand at the window and watch the clouds part further, revealing patches of blue sky. The garden Elise meticulously planned but never tended gleams with raindrops, each one catching the light like tiny revelations. I think of her face this morning, the shock, the fear beneath the anger. I think of the moment she first told me she loved me, under stars at Cannon Beach, her voice thick with emotion I no longer believe was genuine. I think of the gradual cooling of her touch, her laugh, her gaze. The slow death of something I kept insisting was still breathing. In the quiet of our half-empty home, I finally allow myself to feel everything I've pushed away. Grief for what never truly existed, anger at her betrayal, shame at my complicity in my own diminishment. The emotions wash through me like the storm that has just passed, violent, cleansing, and ultimately necessary. When the tears finally come, they aren't for the money, or even for Elise. They're for the years I spent making myself smaller to fit inside someone else's idea of love. The tears dry on my face as evening settles around the house. I haven't moved from the window for what feels like hours, watching as daylight surrenders to dusk. The neighbors' porch lights flicker on one by one, small beacons in the gathering darkness. Inside, our home, my home now, I suppose, remains unlit, suspended in the blue-gray limbo between day and night. I should turn on a lamp. I should eat something. I should call someone. Instead, I stand perfectly still, feeling the weight of silence pressing against my skin like a physical presence. Elise has always filled our spaces with sound. Her voice on conference calls, the tap of her heels on hardwood, classical music streaming through expensive speakers she insisted we needed. In her absence, I become aware of other sounds, the refrigerator's gentle hum, the distant rhythm of waves against the shore 3 blocks away, the soft crack of the house settling on its foundation, the sounds of things holding themselves together. My phone vibrates in my pocket, a text from Jonah. "Doing okay?" I type back, standing in the dark like a gothic novel protagonist. But yes, okay. His response comes quickly. "Don't go full Heathcliff on me. Eat something." A ghost of a smile crosses my face. I flick on the kitchen light and open the refrigerator, suddenly aware of hunger, not just for food, but for simple, uncomplicated nourishment. I find leftover pasta from 2 nights ago, when life still wore the mask of normalcy. As I wait for it to heat in the microwave, I notice Elise's half-empty coffee cup still sitting on the table where she left it this morning, 12 hours ago. It feels like years. I pick up the cup, run my thumb along the perfect crescent of lipstick on its rim, Russian Red by MAC, the only shade she ever wears. War. The tense confusion makes me pause. So many small adjustments ahead, recalibrating life from us to I. The microwave beeps. I set down her cup and retrieve my dinner, carrying it not to the dining table, but to the living room sofa, something Elise never permitted. "Food stays in designated eating areas," she'd say, as if crumbs on cushions might trigger some domestic apocalypse. I eat straight from the container, feet propped on the coffee table, breaking all her unwritten rules at once. The rebellion feels childish but necessary, like reclaiming territories long surrendered in the name of compromise. My phone rings, an unknown number. For a moment, my heart stutters with the possibility that it might be Elise, calling from some untraceable line to rage or plead or threaten. But when I answer, the voice on the other end is softer, more hesitant. "Daniel?" It's Mira. Mira Lynn. Morning arrives with the disorienting awareness that I've slept on the couch, fully dressed, an empty pasta container on the floor beside me. Sunlight streams through windows Elise would have closed the blinds against. It fades the furniture, Daniel, illuminating dust motes that dance in golden suspension. I check my phone. 8:47 a.m. No messages or calls from Elise, but several missed texts from Jonah asking if we're still meeting for coffee. And there, at the bottom of the notifications, a calendar reminder I set last night after speaking with Mira. Lighthouse Point Cafe, 11 a.m. The Lighthouse. I haven't been there since before Elise and I married. It was too touristy, she said, preferring sleeker venues that served artisanal cocktails and featured in architectural magazines. Yet another small joy quietly surrendered. I shower and dress deliberately, choosing the forest green sweater Elise always said made me look washed out. My reflection in the bathroom mirror looks both familiar and strange. Same dark eyes, same stubborn cowlick at my temple, same faint scar above my left eyebrow from when Clara and I crashed our bikes into each other at 13. But something has shifted in my gaze, a new alertness that wasn't there yesterday. On impulse, I open Elise's side of the medicine cabinet. Her expensive creams and serums stand in perfect alignment, armed soldiers guarding against the advance of time. At the back, half hidden behind her prescription antihistamines, I find what I'm looking for. A small orange bottle of sleeping pills. The prescription date is from 3 months ago, the bottle nearly empty. How long has she been planning this? The thought follows me as I drive to meet Jonah at our old high school haunt, a shabby beachfront coffee shop that somehow survived the town's gradual gentrification. He's already there when I arrive, 2 steaming mugs on the driftwood table in front of him. "You look like hell," he says by way of greeting, pushing one of the mugs toward me. "Slept on the couch." I sink into the chair opposite him, gratefully wrapping my hands around the warmth of the coffee. "Talked to Mira Lynn last night." His eyebrows lift. "And?" "She's meeting me at the lighthouse later. She says there's more I need to know." Jonah nods slowly, watching me over the rim of his mug. "You're handling this differently than I expected." "How did you expect me to handle it?" He shrugs. "I don't know. Breaking things, drinking too much, calling me at 3 a.m. to bail you out of some spectacularly self-destructive scenario." His mouth quirks in a half-smile. "The Daniel Marlowe Greatest Hits album." I wince at the accuracy of his assessment. After my father died, after my first serious relationship imploded, after the publishing house rejected my manuscript, each time I'd turn destruction inward, finding increasingly creative ways to punish myself for failures I couldn't seem to prevent. "Maybe I'm growing up," I say, attempting lightness. "Maybe you're finally angry at the right person." The words hang between us, simple and true. For years, I've directed all my frustration, all my disappointment, all my quiet rage at myself. Never outward. Never at the people who actually wounded me. Especially not at Elise, whose approval I'd come to crave with an intensity that embarrasses me now. "I'm meeting Clara on Thursday," I say, changing the subject. "She's driving down from Portland." Jonah's face softens. "Good. That's really good, Danny. I should never have let Elise come between us." "No," he agrees, without judgment. "You shouldn't have." We finish our coffee in companionable silence, watching waves break against the morning shore. Before we part, Jonah grips my shoulder in that solid way of his, a wordless affirmation that feels more sustaining than any platitude could. The Lighthouse Point Cafe sits perched on cliffs overlooking the Pacific, its weathered exterior belying the warmth inside. Through the window, I spot Mira immediately, petite, precise, her straight black hair cut in a sleek bob that hasn't changed since college. She sees me too, raising a hand in tentative greeting. "Thank you for meeting me," I say, as I slide into the booth across from her. Mira studies me, her dark eyes analytical behind round glasses. "I wasn't sure you'd come, after my email ... She trails off, fingers nervously tracing the rim of her teacup. "Your email changed everything," I tell her honestly. "But I don't understand why you sent it. Why now?" She looks away, toward the lighthouse standing sentinel against the sky. "I heard rumors about Elise targeting another partner at her new firm, using the same playbook she used on me." Her voice is steady, but I catch the slight tremor in her hands. I couldn't just watch it happen again. "Tell me," I say, and she does. For the next hour, Mira outlines a pattern of behavior that makes my blood run cold. The financial manipulations weren't limited to our joint savings. They were part of a larger scheme stretching back years. Elise had been using legal gray areas to siphon funds from multiple joint ventures, creating paper trails that implicated her partners while keeping herself insulated. When those partners raised concerns, she discredited them professionally and personally. "She made me doubt my own sanity," Mira says, her voice dropping almost to a whisper. "Told everyone I was unstable, jealous, vindictive. By the time I got my bearings, the damage was done." I think of how often Elise described former friends and colleagues as unbalanced or difficult. How she'd sigh and say, "People can be so disappointing when you really get to know them." All the while, she'd been the architect of their undoing. "Why didn't anyone stop her?" I ask, knowing even as the words leave my mouth how naive they sound. Mira's smile is sad. The same reason you didn't, I imagine. She's brilliant at choosing her targets, people who value harmony, who doubt themselves, who would rather absorb pain than cause a scene. She meets my eyes directly. People like us. The recognition stings, but I don't look away. The documentation you sent me is just the tip of the iceberg. She reaches into her bag and slides a flash drive across the table. This contains everything: financial records, emails, recorded conversations with other victims. It's all here. I stare at the small device, feeling its disproportionate weight. What do you expect me to do with this? Whatever you need to do. Mira stands, gathering her coat. For what it's worth, Daniel, I don't think she ever meant to hurt you specifically. You were just collateral damage in her pursuit of control. Small comfort, but I nod anyway. As she turns to leave, I call after her. Mira, thank you for breaking the silence. She looks back, a ghost of a smile crossing her face. Some silences need to be broken. The house is still silent when I return, but it feels different now, less suffocating, more contemplative. I move through the rooms with new awareness, seeing them not as spaces Elise curated, but as canvases I might reclaim. In the study, I open my laptop and, after a moment's hesitation, plug in Mira's flash drive. The files are meticulously organized, dated, annotated, thousands of them. I start reading, and hours slip away as Elise's carefully constructed facade crumbles completely under the weight of evidence. When darkness falls, I draft a second email, more comprehensive than the first, with attachments that could destroy not just her reputation, but potentially lead to criminal charges. My finger hovers over the send button, trembling slightly with the power it now holds. Is this justice or vengeance? The line blurs in the blue light of the screen. I think of Elise's face this morning. The shock, the fear, the flash of vulnerability before rage took over. I think of Mira, rebuilding her life from ruins Elise created. I think of other victims named in these files, people whose stories mirror my own in ways that make my chest ache. In the end, I save the email to drafts, not because Elise deserves mercy, but because I need time to decide what kind of person I want to be in the aftermath of her betrayal. The phone rings, startling me from my thoughts. Unknown number, again. I answer cautiously. Daniel? The voice is tentative, laden with years of unspoken words. It's Clara, my sister. The last time we spoke was at our mother's funeral, 3 years ago. Elise had stood between us like a beautiful barrier, steering me away before we could say anything of consequence. Later, she'd remarked on Clara's inappropriate dress, her excessive emotion, how she'd always been the unstable one. And I, grief-numb and conflict-avoidant, had let another silence grow where love should have flourished. Clara, I breathe, surprised by the sudden burn of tears. How did you... Jonah called me. Her voice softens. He said you might need family right now. Family. The word opens something in my chest that's been locked for too long. I'm sorry, I say, the words inadequate but necessary. For everything. I know. I can hear the smile in her voice, the absence of judgment. Want to come up to Portland for a few days? My guest room's a mess, but there's paint and wine and absolutely no judgment. The invitation is so unexpected, so perfectly Clara, that I laugh for what feels like the first time in years. Yes, I say, without consulting any mental calendar, without weighing options or consequences. Just yes. Simple and true. Good, she says, and in that one word I hear forgiveness, welcome, and the promise of renewal. I've missed you, little brother. I've missed me too, I reply, surprising myself with the raw honesty. I think I'm finding my way back. After we hang up, I stand at the window again, but this time I switch on a lamp, casting warm light out into the darkness. A small act of presence, of claiming space, of saying, I am here, I am whole, I am beginning again. In the morning, I will pack a bag and drive north to my sister's house by the sea. I will leave my laptop, and Elise's fate, behind for now. Not forgotten, but set aside while I remember how to breathe, how to create, how to exist, without constantly making myself smaller. The second email waits in my drafts folder, not to send, but to remember that I could. The Oregon coastline unfurls beside me like a living painting, fog draped over jagged cliffs, sunlight breaking through in sudden, breathtaking moments of clarity. I drive with the windows down despite the chill, letting salt air fill my lungs and tangle my hair. For the first time in years, I embrace the mess, the unpredictability, the raw aliveness of an environment I cannot control. My phone buzzes midway through the journey. Jonah, checking in. She came by the school looking for you, said she couldn't reach you. I pull over to check the missed calls. 7 from Elise, 3 from unknown. 2 voicemails that transform from controlled manipulation to fraying desperation. The bank has frozen the accounts. Her firm has opened an investigation. Her carefully constructed world is collapsing. I should feel triumph. Instead, I feel only a curious emptiness, as if watching a storm from a safe distance. I text Jonah back. On my way to Clara's. If Elise comes by again, tell her I'll be in touch through lawyers when I'm ready. Then I continue driving north, towards something still taking shape in the fog. Clara's weathered blue Victorian appears through mist, like something from a dream. Before I can knock, the door flies open, and there she is. My sister, haloed in warm light, arms already outstretched. Look what the tide dragged in, she says, and then we're hugging, awkward and tight and perfect. Inside, her home is beautifully chaotic, paintings leaning against walls, books forming precarious towers, dried flowers hanging from exposed beams. It smells of oil paint, coffee, and sea salt. Everything Elise would have hated. Guest room's this way, Clara says, leading me upstairs. By guest room, I mean the room where I throw all the clothes I'm too lazy to put away, but I cleared a path to the bed. A patchwork quilt, our grandmother's work, covers the bed. Clara sees me notice it. Mom gave it to me after the funeral, she says quietly. I would have called to tell you, but Elise answered my phone, I finish, the memory surfacing with new clarity. And by the time I worked up the courage to try again, it felt like too much time had passed. She shrugs. I figured you'd reach out when you were ready. I'm sorry it took this. I'm not, she says simply, because you're here now. Evening finds us sharing wine and bridging the gap of lost years. When Clara asks about my writing, something breaks open inside me. I stopped, I admit. Elise thought it was impractical. Clara's face darkens. What else did you let go, Danny? What else did she take? I think of friends who gradually disappeared, family holidays abandoned, hobbies surrendered. The slow, systematic pruning of everything that had once made me who I was. Too much, I whisper. I gave away too much. Clara reaches across the table, her paint-stained fingers wrapping around mine. Then it's time to take it back. The next morning, she leads me to her studio and hands me canvas, brushes, paints. I don't know how to do this, I protest. Good. No preconceptions, just color and motion and feeling. I touch brush to canvas, expecting disappointment. But as blue blooms beneath my hand, something shifts. I add gray, then a streak of gold that surprises me with its boldness. The result is clumsy, unrefined, but it captures something true. It's terrible, I laugh. It's honest, Clara corrects, and honest is always beautiful. Later, Jonah calls with news. Elise came by again, scared. The ethics committee has opened an investigation. My email did exactly what I thought it would. I never wanted to destroy her, I tell him. But maybe she needs to face consequences for once, he replies. After we hang up, Clara asks about the second email Jonah mentioned, the one I didn't send. There was more, I explain. Enough to trigger criminal charges, probably. I saved it to drafts. What do you want, Danny? She asks softly. Not what you think should happen, or what she deserves. What do you want for yourself? The question catches me off guard. What do I want? For so long, my desires have been filtered through Elise's preferences, her approval. I want to remember who I was before, I say slowly. I want to write again. I want to be free of her. Not by destroying her, but by letting go. Clara smiles. Then I think you know what to do with that email. That night, I open my laptop. The second email still waits in drafts, its potential for destruction humming like a live wire. I read through its damning contents one last time, then delete it, not for her sake, but for mine. Next, I open a blank document and begin to type. The rain came first, then the silence. Then the slow realization that some endings are also beginnings, disguised as loss. Words flow, tentative at first, then with gathering confidence, something raw and honest and entirely my own. Days later, Jonah's car appears on Clara's driveway. But this time, he's not alone. Elise sits in the passenger seat, her posture rigid even at this distance. She showed up at my place, Jonah explains. Said she wouldn't leave until she saw you. You don't have to see her, Clara says fiercely. I look at the car, where Elise sits staring ahead. Once, I would have done anything to ease her distress. Now, I observe it with compassion, but not responsibility. It's time, I say quietly. I walk to the car. Elise looks up, and her appearance shocks me. Hair in a simple ponytail, face bare of makeup, eyes shadowed by sleepless nights. Daniel, she says, her voice smaller than I remember. Hello, Elise. The money, she begins. Once this is sorted, I can make arrangements for your half to be returned. She swallows. More than half, if that's what you want. Is that why you came? To discuss finances? No. She looks down. The investigation at the firm. It's serious. They're looking at everything now. She meets my eyes. That second email, did you send it? I deleted it. Why? Because holding on to it meant holding on to you, to what you did, to what we became together. I take a breath. I want to be free. Something shifts in her expression, a glimpse of genuine emotion breaking through. I never meant to hurt you. I believe you think that's true. I hope someday you'll understand why it isn't. I step back. Goodbye, Elise. Her hand grasps my wrist. Daniel, wait. I don't know how to do this without you. I don't know how to be alone. I gently remove her fingers, holding her hand briefly before letting go. You'll learn, I tell her, not unkindly. We all do, eventually. The morning I leave Clara's house, dawn breaks clear over the Columbia River. We stand on her porch with coffee, watching light spill across the water. You could stay longer, she offers. I'll be back often, I promise. But I need to face the house, begin again. She hands me a small wrapped package. Open it later, when you need a reminder. When I reach home, late afternoon light gilds the windows. Inside, everything is as I left it. Elise's half-empty cup, my closed laptop, silence filling the spaces between. But the silence feels different now. Not oppressive, just quiet, waiting to be filled with new sounds, new words, new life. I open Clara's package last, after unpacking, after ordering from the Thai place Elise always dismissed, after adding another 1,000 words to my novel. Inside is a painting of a lighthouse on a stormy coast, its beam cutting through darkness. In the corner, her messy scrawl, for Danny. Remember, after the theft, after the silence, comes the light. Love always, see. I prop it on my desk, a talisman against forgetting, against the subtle erosion of self that happens when we give our power away in the name of love. Outside, rain begins to fall, gentle percussion against the windows, so different from the storm that raged that morning at breakfast when everything changed. I open my laptop and begin to write, filling the silence with words that are wholly, authentically mine. The story isn't finished. There will be difficult days ahead, moments when I miss Elise, or at least the idea of her. But for now, I am exactly where I need to be, writing the truth as I understand it, one word at a time. Not running from silence, but filling it with meaning. Not hiding from solitude, but finding myself within it. After the theft, after the silence, comes the light. Not all at once, but gradually, until you realize the darkness has receded without you noticing, and you are standing in the full brightness of your own life, finally awake.